We're bringing more monsters back from the dead today. I know that every horror movie essentially tells us this is a really bad idea, but bad ideas make for great stories, right? Maybe even for great movies. And if there's one thing that I know, it's that we need more horror monsters roaming around. Who else is gonna make us check over our shoulders from time to time? So here we go. It's the top 5 scariest horror movie monsters nobody talks about, part 3. Coming in at number 5, we've got the monster from The Host. Way back before Bong Joon-ho thrilled audiences all the way to an Oscar win, he was still making wicked movies. Memories of Murder, Mother, and of course the environmentally minded political monster movie, The Host. Somebody recommended I give this a watch while I was in university, and late one night I decided to put on. Excellent choice. Man, even if you want to look past all the powerful messages expertly threaded throughout the movie, the monster scenes alone make it worth watching. They're that good. The very first scene we see the monster in is so chaotic, so wonderfully shot, so expert in its use of its horrific creature that it hooks you for the rest of the flick. From then on, it doesn't matter what happens as long as there's the potential for more monster action just like that. It's just such a cool creature. The enormous body and eyes of a fish, so cold and inhuman. The crazy sweeping lizard tail that can be used as a prehensile limb for climbing, as well as a weapon for absolutely tossing victims. It can swim through the nasty water from which it originated, making it extremely difficult to track down, but it can also move at high speeds on land, making it a dangerous predator to humans. Plus, its legs are just super freaky to look at. Worst of all is that mouth. Just look at it. The folds, the flaps, the teeth. That is one hole you do not want to find yourself looking down. On top of all the terrifying physical attributes that make up the Host's monster, there's also the fact that it's the host to a deadly virus that nobody seems to have an answer for. In fact, it gets so bad that the government decides that Agent Yellow is a better call than waiting to see what happens. Death by monster and virus, or death by chemicals. Neither a great choice. And of course, the monster itself was implicitly created by human wastefulness. At the beginning of the movie, we watch as 200 bottles of formaldehyde is dumped into the river, eventually killing off all the resident fish and giving rise to this deadly being. The digital effects used to render this creature might be a little dated, but there's no denying the effectiveness of the monster, even more than a decade later. For a monster that will make you equally terrified and thoughtful, check out The Host. Coming in at number 4, we've got Billy from Black Christmas, 1974. We could talk about the updated iterations of Billy and Agnes from different Black Christmases over the years, but nothing tops the mystery and madness of that first killer man-child. The fact that we never actually see Billy really manages to say something about how scary Bob Clark managed to make his movie. Throughout the movie, we're treated to POV shots of this maniacal murderer sneaking into the sorority house and stealthily picking off different unfortunate souls. There's that first bit where he manages to scale the trellis and slink his way into the closet of an unsuspecting Claire Harrison. The resulting plastic bag kill will go down in horror history for sure, and from there, things only get creepier. The profane phone calls keep rolling in, and the police aren't quite able to pin down where they're coming from. Murders and disappearances continue to happen, but nobody's piecing everything together. And the whole time, Billy is gibbering away in the attic, screaming and hissing about some long-lost trauma concerning Agnes. The fact that his motives are so unclear, his history so muddled, adds to the sheer terror he inspires, and the noises this man can make are otherworldly. He can do the world's scariest baby talk, which then morphs into crazy screeches, which might take on guttural aspects or become even more shrill.
Hello? Who is this?
Please stop. Oh, God.
If I answered the phone and heard whatever the hell all that is on the other end, I'd probably just drop dead immediately. I'll take robocalls over that any day. And of course, there's the iconic eyeball through the crack in the door moment. That's the closest we get to actually seeing the villain here, and it is harrowing to say the least. Just a crazed, wide open eye communicating all the killer instinct and bloodlust in the world. Folks talk about Black Christmas being a prototypical slasher and about being Canadian and being ahead of its time, but it's not often enough that Billy gets the same star treatment that Leatherface and Michael Myers get. Put some respect on his name. Coming in at number 3, we've got Xtro from Xtro. Alright, so this might be a bit of a weird call. Xtro as a movie, in my opinion, is not all that scary. In fact, it's pretty darn cheesy, with a whole lot of moments that are more likely to make you snicker than scream. It's the tale of a man abducted by aliens and then brought back and reborn on Earth. There are lots of questionable bits in here, but when Xtro gets scary, it gets really scary. See, at one point, there was one gif ripped from this movie that was scaring folks' pants off with ease. There's a scene near the beginning of the movie where an alien is planted on Earth in some sort of seed, then it pops out and gets hit by a car. This bit with the car rolling down a dark and lonesome road, headlights illuminating this nasty monster, it's incredible. Just watch it. If you saw this out of context, you'd have it burned into your brain for weeks. It's just such a strong and scary image. It's a shame that the rest of the movie can't back it up. Really, this shot from Xtro has more potential to be effectively used in one-off creepypasta than in a cheesy feature-length sci-fi horror. Like, all you need to take away from this movie is this one shot of the monster, and you can call it a win. That is a freaky creature, well-placed to become a piece of modern online cryptozoology legend. So yeah, if you've never heard of Xtro, it's probably because it's a pretty mediocre movie. But if you want a freaky monster and a freaky moment, check that bit out. Coming in at number 2, we've got Andrew Tully from Hell House, LLC. And the rest of the Hell House movies. I always find a way to work Hell House into these videos, eh? This is a relatively recent found footage series, well worth a watch if you haven't seen it already, and amazingly enough, they have a whole lot of monsters scattered throughout. The big bad in the first movie probably appeared to be a gray clown, and it was used really effectively for some awesome scares, but as you watch more of the series, you realize that there's one baddie behind it all, Andrew Tully. Briefly mentioned in the first Hell House, Tully's backstory is expanded in the sequels. He was the original owner of the Abaddon Hotel and seemed to perform plenty of unsavory acts within those walls. After being accused of causing the disappearance of a mother-daughter duo, he apparently committed suicide. But even with his body gone, his spirit remained. Over the years, Tully lured countless people into the hotel, toying with them until the perfect moment came along, and then bringing them to the oft-mentioned Lake of Fire. He is a truly malevolent presence, bringing all sorts of fears to life around the haunted hotel. Using his powers to open portals to hell and leading hooded figures on massive massacres, Tully manages to pull the strings behind the scenes like an evil puppet master. Hell House lore is something that not a lot of people seem to know a whole lot about, but there is plenty packed into these found footage fun houses. If you can learn anything from him, it should probably be don't make deals with weird scar-covered men in abandoned hotels, but you probably already knew that. And coming in at number 1, we've got Reeker from Reeker. A supremely underrated slasher from the mid-2000s, Reeker deserves a spot on a whole lot more movie monster lists. This rotten, stinking, drill-wielding monster terrorizes the back roads like no one else, and it is awesome. A bunch of friends decide to head to a rave in the desert, but after a series of bad choices involving stealing drugs from a murderous drug dealer and shacking up at a crappy hotel, they find themselves being hunted down by this decaying demon. The thing is, not everything is as it seems. That's right, there are layers to this modern slasher, and all of the tropes are pretty smartly employed to get the most out of all the scares. Hell, it was good enough to earn a sequel, No Man's Land, The Rise of Reeker. Folks should be looking back on this one with love in their hearts, but it seems that it's been largely forgotten. For shame. Bring back the smelly highway demon. Now that I've talked about all these lovely monsters, let's hope that they all manage to garner some attention once more. And if they don't, I'll take it very personally. So, what'd you think of the list? Had you heard of all these monsters? What's a horror movie monster nobody seems to recall but you? Make sure you let me know down in the comments. Speaking of comments, let's take a look at some of your more insidious ones. From the top 5 scariest horror movies nobody talks about, Marathon. Jack Does says, am I the only person who got motion sickness while watching Hell House? Found footage can do that to a person. My advice? Take some Gravol and maybe add a car sickness wristband. Mark Stone says Keegan. The life story would be scariest. Kidding, would be fun to watch. Hey, give it a few more years, okay, before you start writing that? Because I've got some more stuff I gotta do. Shawnee Man Woodford says, never seen anything like Possum before. I still wonder why he carried it around with him. The puppet may or may not have been a metaphor for something. And that's all the time we have for today. I'm gonna write a really, really long letter to my favorite rapper. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.